What is up, guys? Rick Cactus here, and today we are going to be showcasing all of the available Dreaming City weapons within Destiny 2 Forsaken and ranking them from the worst to the best, using many factors including what gun type and archetype they belong to, their starting stats, the perks they can spawn with, the perk combinations, and more, so that you guys know which weapons and which roles to be on the lookout for. And so, let's get started. But just before we do, guys, if you're looking for amazing gaming headphones, including the ones I personally use, the A40s, I've partnered with ASTRO, so check the link in the description down below. Clicking it will automatically apply a discount, which is going to save you money and help me out. Definition of a win-win right there. Alright, now let's get started with the rankings. Now, it should be noted that ranking a group of guns in year 1 was a lot easier because they had static rolls. Now that we have random rolls, the worst ranked weapon with a god roll could compete with a crappy roll of the best ranked weapon. So keep that in mind. Something near the bottom of the rankings isn't necessarily bad, it's just not as good at its prime state as the best ranked weapons in their prime state. So be on the lookout for good rolls all across the board, because all the Dreaming City loot is actually pretty decent. Also, by Dreaming City loot, I mean loot that you get through Petra Bounties, Ascendant Challenges, killing the corrupted eggs with the Wish Ender, all of that stuff. There is some other stuff that looks like it should be Dreaming City loot, like this sidearm here, but it's not. This is a world drop, even though it may have been designed originally as Dreaming City loot. So, let's get started here at the bottom with the worst ranked Dreaming City weapon, and that is the Abide the Return Legendary Sword. Now, this weapon can actually get some pretty decent rolls. I love the combination of Relentless Strikes, where landing 3 light attacks will grant you ammo back, and Whirlwind Blade, where consecutive rapid sword strikes will increase the damage output. Those work really well together, and it is actually pretty fun using a sword. However, it's just not that effective using a sword. Right now, swords are not performing super well in the current meta in PvE and PvP really. That doesn't mean you can't use them, but even Bungie themselves came out and admitted that during one of the October updates, swords are going to get a buff. So when that update hits, this could definitely rise in the rankings. But the fact that Bungie themselves has come out and said, yeah, we need to buff swords, not doing too well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding at that point. It really also doesn't help that every single boss, it seems, in Destiny 2 does a ground and pound attack if you get too close. That just doesn't make swords super amazing. In Destiny 1, swords actually were relevant because they were exotic swords and they had extremely powerful special attacks. We're just talking about kind of an average legendary sword right now. But as soon as that buff hits, definitely be on the lookout for this weapon. Moving on from there, next on our list, and second worst, I guess you could say, is the Vouchsafe Legendary Scout Rifle. Now, unfortunately, this is another weapon that, to no fault of its own, but rather to the meta's fault, is finding its place near the bottom of the list. Scout rifles are not doing well right now in PvP or PvE. You almost never see them in either because, other weapons got some buffs and scout rifles really didn't. And scout rifles really relied on explosive rounds, and that got a pretty substantial nerf going into Forsaken as well. So scout rifles died so other weapons could live, basically. Additionally, in terms of starting stats, handling and reload speed are very impressive, but range and stability really aren't, and this is a weapon that could use a little bit more stability. Now, when I was utilizing this weapon and getting footage, I expected this to be so much worse than it was because scout rifles are not doing well so far, but it's really not that bad. It's actually an effective little weapon. And this is another one of those things where once a buff hits, and Bungie again talked about buffing scout rifles in PvE specifically, then we can definitely revisit this weapon because it actually has some pretty decent perk combinations. It can spawn with explosive payload, which, although it's much worse, is still a pretty darn decent perk. It also spawns with full auto trigger system, which I really like, and I did get one with full auto and explosive payload, and again, it was a pretty decent weapon to use. It can spawn with triple tap, outlaw, there's a lot of good combinations, dragonfly. In fact, it can even get one of the special curated exotic rolls where it gets one set row of unchangeable perks, and in that case, it would get Zen Moment, where causing damage will increase the accuracy significantly and the stability, which isn't that actually bad with the Vouchsafe, because again, it doesn't have the best stability, and Dragonflight at the same time. And it's going to come Masterwork 10, and that's not terrible either. You don't have to spend Masterwork cores if you do get this exotic roll, and you're going to be producing orbs every time you get a double kill, and that's a lot less common now with the Masterwork system being so taxing on your Masterwork cores. But even with all of that being said, there are still better options out there. In fact, let's talk about one, moving on to the next ranked weapon with the Twilight Oath Legendary Sniper Rifle. Now, I should note that from this point, with the Twilight Oath going forward, all of these weapons are very close, and they definitely are in the upper echelon of weapons you can get. The sword and the scout were the only two kind of definitely near the bottom. So, Twilight Oath, pretty darn decent weapon. In fact, one of the best traits it has is that it spawns with its own particular sight, and that sight is extremely low zoom. Like extremely low zoom. So if you are someone who plays PvP and plays very aggressively and likes to use a sniper rifle, and you want that like as low as a zoom as you could possibly get, you're actually just looking for the Twilight Oath. You are specifically looking for this weapon, and that's a very powerful feature. But with that being said, that's a very specific kind of player and playstyle that is looking for this weapon. The unfortunate part for this weapon is that the vast majority of people in PvP are using shotguns or fusion rifles, and by fusion rifles I specifically mean the Telesto, right? Those are everywhere, and snipers are kind of taking a back seat. So although this is a pretty decent sniper in PvP, like snipers themselves are definitely being outused and outpaced by some of the other weapons. Now, in terms of perks, it can spawn with some very good ones. It belongs to the lowest damage, fastest firing archetype of snipers, so it gets rapid fire frame as an intrinsic perk. It can also get triple tap, which works well with automatically 6 rounds in a magazine. You can even combine it with triple tap and extended mag or appended mag to increase the magazine size, and then combine it with triple tap for a pretty ridiculous output in PvE against bosses and so on. It can spawn with snapshot sights for PvP, very importantly. It can also spawn with box breathing, kill clip, outlaw. Again, there's some good perks and some good combinations it can spawn with. In fact, speaking of combinations, you can actually get this weapon with the exotic roll, and that comes with snapshot sights and box breathing and steady rounds. So that's going to be definitely more of a PvP roll if you do get the exotic roll. For PvE, you're absolutely looking for triple tap. If you don't have triple tap, like almost don't even bother for like a top tier roll. But if you're looking for a sniper in PvE, use the Whisper, right? So although this is actually a good little weapon, it has a unique trait with its extremely low zoom sight, it can get some good perks, it's another kind of a victim of the meta. If snipers improve, this weapon will improve with them. Moving on from there, the next rank weapon we have is the Sleepless Legendary Rocket Launcher. Now this is a pretty fantastic weapon. This belongs to the highest blast radius category of rocket launchers. It has the high impact frame as an intrinsic perk, and that's very good. Just that by itself, like potentially max outable blast radius combined with the fact that it can spawn with cluster bomb. Basically, this is a Sins of the Past, the previous raid rocket launcher from Leviathan, which got heavy play in, frankly, PvP and PvE. You know, a rocket launcher with the biggest blast radius you can get is very powerful, so it can get that exact combination, but it can also get that second tier of perks. You can also get kill clip. You can also get Field Prep for more ammo reserves in PvE. You can also even get something like Quick Draw and Snapshot Sights, which isn't bad either. So basically, it's a Sins of the Past, one of the best weapons of Year 1, with another pretty decent perk. And that is a pretty deadly combination. However, something else that makes this weapon very good is that it can get a perk called Impact Casing that increases damage on direct hits. So, you can get Cluster Bomb, plus, let's say, Field Prep, way more ammo in reserves, plus Impact Casing, so you're doing more damage for direct hits. And if you're looking to damage a boss, like even Callus, with a Cluster Bomb rocket, this is going to be near the top. The combination of more damage for a direct hit, which is very important with Impact Casing, and Cluster Bomb, like, that is a serious combo that makes this weapon quite good. Now, if you are looking for a PvP role, you can also get it with Tracking and Snapshot Sights or Quick Draw, and you can also have several different perks that will increase the velocity without sacrificing the blast radius too much. So you can just have an overall pretty decent rocket launcher with Tracking, which is a pretty decent weapon to have actually. So, relevant gun type, great archetype, good stats, fantastic perks. Definitely be on the lookout for this weapon, especially if you do get the combination of Impact Casing and Cluster Bombs. Also, it can get an exotic roll with Tracking and Quick Draw and Impact Casing at the same time. You know, that's kind of waffling in the middle of what you want for PvP and PvE, but still should be noted. Moving on from there, moving up the rankings with the third best weapon, we have the Waking Vigil Legendary Hand Cannon. This is a pretty decent little gun. It has overall pretty fantastic stats. It belongs to the 150 rounds per minute archetype, so it's going to shoot a little bit faster than something like the better Devil's Hand Cannon, but do a little bit less damage. Pretty decent in PvP and PvE. Now, it doesn't find itself at the very top because in PvP specifically, even though you can get a pretty decent roll, and if you like hand cannons and you're good with hand cannons, this thing can do work. However, there's just better options out there. Why would you use this if you have the Luna's Howl or even the Ace of Spades? And there's just kind of slightly more competitive options, which in PvP that matters quite a bit. Another reason it doesn't find itself too far up the list is because it actually cannot spawn with Rampage or Kill Clip, two very good and important perks, especially in PvE. So, in PvE, really the best role you're looking for is either Triple Tap and Dragonfly or the Fatebringer role of Outlaw and Dragonfly. And that's some pretty decent combinations. That's actually some pretty good rolls. If you get a Walking Vigil with Outlaw and Dragonfly, you're not going to be upset. You're going to be very happy, and it's going to be a darn decent weapon. But the downside is that you're looking for those very specific roles. If we had, Kill Clip thrown in here, there'd be a lot more combinations that you could get and be happy with. But although we've been talking about the downsides of this weapon, the upsides are still more significant. It's a great archetype, great starting stats, in fact pretty insane handling and reload speed, with again some pretty decent perk combinations. Not the best, but pretty darn decent still. It can also get an exotic roll with Snapshot Sights and Outlaw, which definitely isn't bad also. And for a primary weapon like this, if you do get that special roll and get it automatically masterworked, again the orb production that you're getting with such a solid weapon is through the roof and very, very important when doing a lot of activities. Now, moving on from there, the second best Dreaming City weapon is the Tigerspite. Now, this is just an incredibly solid weapon. It belongs to the 450 rounds per minute auto rifle archetype and has pretty generous stats across the board. And as a result, it is nearly impossible to get an absolute trash roll on the Tigerspite. Even if you get something like, Tap the Trigger and Pulse Monitor, it's going to be a pretty decent little weapon. And that's because, again, the overall stats, its archetype, are just so solid. It's such an easy to use weapon. I see all the other Dreaming City weapons occasionally from here to there, but I see the Tigerspite all the time. I see Guardians running around with the Tigerspite in their hands constantly because it is just so solid. It can actually get Kill Clip, a very good perk, in either of its 2 perk slots. So that opens up a bunch of different combinations. You can get Kill Clip and Triple Tap, which I have. It's kind of a non-bow, but it's still 2 very good perks. You can actually get Kill Clip and High Impact Reserves to increase the damage even more. You can get the Wombo combo of Outlaw plus Kill Clip. And that's not to mention, Kill Clip plus even something like Quick Draw or Under Pressure or Grave Robber even, whatever. Those are all pretty decent combinations. Now, unfortunately, it is a little bit of a victim of the meta in PvP. Auto rifles are not doing super hot right now, but, some people absolutely swear by auto rifles, and the 450s are no slouch. Its real home, though, is still in PvE, just as an incredibly solid weapon. And it's so important that it's solid because with Dreaming City loot specifically, and doing those Petra Bounties, that's going to be one of your main ways to level up to 600. Doing Petra's weekly bounties are going to give you extremely high power level weapons and armor, and you're likely going to wear them to increase your overall power level to do other activities. And when you get a Tigerspite, the fact that it's just always such a solid weapon is such a good factor. You're going to get a highlight Tigerspite, and you're going to be able to throw it on and do well with it no matter what PvE activity you're doing, and that's so important. This is yet another weapon that if the meta ever shifts and auto rifles become more relevant, definitely look to this gun. But it is time to move on to the number 1 pick. The best Dreaming City weapon, in my opinion, is the Retold Tail Legendary Energy Shotgun. This thing, all the other weapons have been, decent. They've been able to get decent rolls. Their god rolls are obviously quite good. They compete with other weapons very well. This is one of the only ones that's truly potentially top tier. Now, by that I mean this is probably the best, arguably the best, energy shotgun in the entire game for PvP. It belongs to the very powerful precision frame shotguns in Forsaken, and that's the same exact archetype, same exact impact as the Dust Rock Blues kinetic shotgun. I'm sure you've seen that thing around in PvP, absolutely mapping people. I have a max range one myself. It's disgusting. It's so good. It's definitely one of the best shotguns, arguably the best PvP shotgun in the entire game. It's being used by a ton of people. It's no slouch in PvE either. So why are we talking about a different weapon when we're talking about the Retold Tail? Well, importantly, that is the precision shotgun for the kinetic slot. This is a precision frame shotgun for the energy slot, and that is so important. You can't use your Duskrock Blues and your Bygones pulse rifle at the same time. And that's not good because both those are so good. If you want to use that pulse, you've got to be using an energy shotgun if you want to run a shotgun, and the Retold Tail is the best one. It may not be absolutely as good as the Dust Rock Blues, but it is really close. You can increase its range substantially by getting accurized rounds with it. You can also get full choke with it to tighten the spread to ridiculous proportions. And you can get stuff like Rampage, Slide Shot. You can also get Quick Draw, full auto trigger system, a host of very good perks that can come with this weapon. Like, I have a roll with Rampage, I think unfortunately Field Prep, but I do have accurized rounds, and I think full choke. It maps people. It maps people in PvP. It's such a solid weapon. I run it all the time because, again, it frees up my kinetic slot for my God Roll Bygones, which I really enjoy running. So it's actually God tier in PvP, which none of these other weapons have been. And it's no slouch in PvE. Now, I'm not trying to say that this is top tier in PvE because what is also a shotgun in the energy slot? The Escalation Shotgun. And in terms of sheer damage output, yeah, this thing doesn't even come close, unfortunately. But It is packing a lot of damage per shot, and you can get Rampage, which is very, very good with the shotgun. You can get Rampage and full auto trigger system. You can get Rampage and field prep. You can get full auto trigger system and field prep, because you can actually get full auto on either of the perk slots. So there's some pretty wicked PvE combinations as well. You can get assault mag and stuff even to increase the magazine size in combination with, you know, a full auto and a Rampage roll. And so, after putting 7 mini weapon reviews into one video, that is my opinion on the worst to the best of all of the Dreaming City weapons. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.